In this demo, we'll be looking at Nutanix Files and how we can back up the file shares that are being presented by the Nutanix Files service. So Files Shares is a service that is presented by the Nutanix Prism Element Server here. And if you go into the File Server section, you can see the file servers that you can set up here. And what we can do is launch the Files console over here. And this is going to provide us with access to the shares and exports that are being presented by this Nutanix Files server. So here I have two shares, one of them being SMB and the other being a combination of NFS and SMB. These are the file services that I would like to back up through vPlus. So I can jump into my vPlus UI, and under the storage provider section, here's where I can create a new storage provider as my backup source. In this case, I'll be selecting Nutanix Files, and this is where I'll be presenting my host, my user and password, as well as information for the Prism Element host username and password, as the file server will be shared under the Prism Element server. Now, in my example, I already have a Nutanix Files server already installed on my vPlus server, and I can take a look at the configuration for that files host. And you can see here this IP address of .113. This should match the IP address of the file server, or one of the IP addresses of the file servers that I had configured, and I can see that here. So that's going to allow me to connect to that file share. I'm going to need to specify a username and password in this format of username and then once configured, I can just specify the Prism Element host URL along with the same Prism Element username and password here. So with that being said, I can just go back into storage providers, look at my Nutanix files, and then run an inventory synchronization. Once that inventory synchronization is complete, I should see under instances a listing of Nutanix files or shares that are being presented by Nutanix files, including my vPlus sys files share located here. In this next demo, we're going to be talking about backing up Nutanix volume groups. And first thing that we'll need to do is ensure that we have some volume groups in our cluster to back up, and we can find that within the Prism Central Server here under volume groups. And you can see the different volume groups that we have out here that are available to be backed up through vPlus. So when we have verified that there are volume groups that we can provide backup for, let's go into DPX vPlus, our UI here, and we're going to go into the storage providers sections under the storage section. So here we can create a new storage provider of type Nutanix volume groups. And this is where we would input in the URL for our Nutanix Prism server, a username, and a password that we can use to connect to that Nutanix Volume Groups service there. As you can see here, I have my Nutanix Volume Groups service scanned in, and we can take a look at the settings for this, but it's just the same URL that I used to connect to my Prism Element server under the admin user, and then a username and password that I can use to configure that volume group service. Once added, I can go ahead and do an inventory synchronization here. And when that inventory synchronization completes, as you can see it has done in this previous attempt, what I can do is then go into the storage instances section, and this is going to allow me to see all the Nutanix volume groups that have been inventoried from that Prism server.